I've gotten some comments that say Frigate NVR is super hard to install, and I'm going to show you today that it's not. You can get a very basic version of Frigate NVR up and running pretty easily. I'm going to take you step by step installing this in a Proxmox LXC container running Debian and get it up and running in a few minutes, just to show you it's not that hard. Now, there are some tweaks and things you can do that can make it more complicated and more challenging, but to get a basic version running of a local NVR using Frigate, it's pretty simple. So let's get started. I'm going to be installing this on a Beelink S12 Mini Pro. It's a little mini PC, and it has 4 cores, 4 threads, 3.4 gigahertz of turbo frequency. It's got an Intel. I don't know why the thing is doing that, but anyway, I guess you can zoom in on something here. There we go. It's got an Intel UHD graphics card. So basically it has an internal GPU, and that's going to be important later on for some of the hardware acceleration we're going to do. So let's get right into installing this. The video is going to take longer than it actually takes to do this because I'm going to be talking about stuff as we go. It really doesn't take that long. I'm going to be installing it as a container, an LXC container, as I mentioned. So we're going to go over here. I'm going to create a CT. We're going to give it a host name. I'll call it Frigate 4 because I think I'm up to 4 now, playing around. And I'm going to give it a password. Now, this is the root password that you'll be putting on there. You're going to create another user to run this on here in a few minutes. I'm going to leave it as an unprivileged container. And then we're going to build it from the template. Now, if you don't have any templates, that's beyond the scope of this video. But I have on my local storage, and I actually have some stuff on my Synology as well. But on my local storage, I have a Debian 12 standard template, so I'm going to use that. And then for disk space, it's storing videos, right? For this demo, I'm going to give it 50 gig worth of space. Storage will be on the local LVM, not anything remote or anything. Keep it simple. I'm going to give it 2 CPU cores, and I'm going to give it about 2 gig of memory. Probably could get away with 1 gig based on what I've seen so far. It doesn't use a lot of memory. But I'll give it 2 to start with. And then for this, since we're going to be talking to this, we're going to want to give it a static IP address. So I'll give it a static IP address of 10.8/24. And then, of course, the gateway of my router. And then I'm going to leave all the rest of this alone. If you have IPv6 and want to use that instead, you certainly can do that. And then DNS, make sure you give it a couple of good DNS servers, at least one anyway, because it's going to have to go out and get some packages and stuff. And then do all the confirmation, make sure everything looks good here with what you want, and click on finish. And it's going to go very quickly and build this LXC container unless your device is super busy. And once it says down here, very hard to see, task OK, then you are finished. Now, before we go any farther, in order to use hardware acceleration, and hardware acceleration is going to help remove some of the loading off of your CPU. And I've seen it go from about 80% CPU load with about 5 cameras down to about 20%. So it definitely does make a difference. But in order to use that on here, since we're using an LXC container, we're going to have to go into the container itself, into our resources, and we're going to have to map a device pass-through. And that device pass-through is going to be, let me go find it for you on my notes. This article, by the way, will be available once I publish the video as well. So we're gonna copy this dev dry render D128, and this is going to be our pass-through that we're going to be using on here. Just put that in here. Now, this again is for the Beelink S12. There may be, if you're doing this on something else, there may be definitely or could be a different device path. You're looking for the GPU path, right? So this is what you need to be able to see within your hardware. So I'll click on that. And once that's in there, what we need to do is go ahead and start up the container. And we're going to open up a console. We're going to do some work on the console first. So we bring that console over here. It's very fast. It's already started up and ready to go. So we're going to log in with that root and that password we just created. And just to make sure I'm following along with my blog post that I wrote, let me go ahead and bring that up over here. And let me also set the terminal to the size that you can actually see it. All right, first we're going to do an update of the operating system, because we want to make sure we have everything ready to go. And we're also going to install sudo, because we're going to need sudo to be able to give sudo access to our user. And now I want to create a user. You can create whatever user you want. I'm going to use create the user Frigate using the -m flag so that it will create a home directory for me. And then I'm going to give the Frigate user a password, just like so. And then I'm going to add this user to the sudos group. So usermod ag sudo and then the user. Okay. And we also want to set password list for this. I'm just going to copy this since it's easier. What it does is when you set it for password list access, sudo commands don't require you to type the password every time you try to do something. You're not comfortable with this, don't do it. Makes it easier all around. So you should get a response like that for password list. And then in order to make all this work, we're going to log back out, Control D, and we're going to log in as a new user we just created. And I typed the password wrong, so we'll do it again. All right, so now you'll notice here that there is a $, and if I type stuff here, it's going to do funny characters. So I want to just go ahead and run it in a bash shell. I'm not going to get into it, but there's definitely a way to go into your bash RC file and set up your default so that it goes to the bash shell or whatever shell you want to run in. I prefer bin bash or bash, so I just do that. Once we get Frigate running, we won't be in here in a lot, so it won't matter. So there you go. Now we're back in. We want to do the same updates that we did a minute ago, or actually we didn't do, but we're going to do an upgrade and an update of the operating system. So let's go ahead and do that. It's going to go download a bunch of stuff, install it, update everything it needs to update while it's running here. And while it's doing that, let me talk about Docker. So you're going to install Docker. Hold up. You're going to install Docker from the Docker, basically the Docker installation methods here. And I've got that link in the blog. Also have the link down below. But this Docker repository will get you all set up to run Docker so that you can install and run Frigate using Docker. And we'll run all these commands here in just a moment once the other stuff is done, which it looks like it's done. So I'm just going to copy all of that stuff in one big piece here. You can do that right over here. Click copy. And I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to paste it all. And it should do everything it's supposed to. So let me just paste that as plain text here. And let's see what happens. It should do everything it needs to do as we're going along here. Install all the Docker stuff. And the way you test that is you run it Docker, actually sudo Docker run hello-world. If it works, then we know we've got it installed. And that didn't work. So I did this once before and it didn't do exactly what it was supposed to do. I think we forgot the sudo apt-get update. How about that piece? Let's do that and actually install it. So we're going to do the rest of it. I forgot some commands here. I didn't actually install Docker. Wah, wah. All right, so if you look over here, this is what happened. I did all this stuff. I didn't do the apt-get update, and I actually didn't install Docker. You actually need to install it, or it won't do anything. Wow, go figure. So we'll just paste that as well, and we'll run that. It's going to ask me if I want to install it. The answer is yes. And then once this is done, we should be able to run the Docker hello world using a sudo environment. So you can see that some of the work here that is going on is actually getting your environment ready. It's not even installing Frigate yet. We haven't even got that far. If you already have all the Docker stuff done, you're running this in a container you already have, you can skip over a lot of this. But this is from basically a new container into running Frigate. So that's what is taking some time here. All right, that's all done. Now we can run the sudo hello world thingy. It'll go get it and it'll say, hello, this shows your installation appears to be working correctly. So that's great. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to go over to this piece here. Whoops, let me find the right place. We actually want to go over and we want to do a post install thing here where we add the user to the Docker group. Now, you can create the Docker group, it's probably already created, but for the sake of making sure we do it all correctly, let's go ahead and just paste that in here as well. It says it's already created, already exists. So we'll run this user mod. Now this $user basically will do this to the currently logged in user. So I don't have to type Frigate, I just type $user, and the environment variable pulls out who I am. So we'll just paste that as well, run it, and boom, there we go. So then I should be able to run hello world. Actually, first you need to log out and log back in, or you can do new group Docker. And I will do that instead. So let's just paste that in here. And you can tell it did something because it changed my shell back to the default. So I'm going to run bash again to bring the shell that I want back. And now we can run Docker hello world without the sudo. And if that works, then our sudo stuff has worked properly for this user. Oh, how about run? All right, so that worked by running the user, running without sudo. All right, so that's all the pieces we need to do to get ready to go. Now we're going to get into the Frigate configuration part. There is a lot of information on the Frigate website. It tells you how to do a lot of things that we're talking about here. So there's a getting started section, and basically I'm following along with the getting started. We installed this, we did what we did here. Basically all the stuff I did. Now, what I didn't do was do the automatic security updates. It's optional. So I could do the unattended updates. It would automatically update things. Makes it less maintenance if you want to do that. I would prefer to do that myself rather than let some automated process do it. We did the Docker stuff. Now, Frigate itself uses this directory structure. It has a docker compose.yml file at the root, and then it has a config and a storage directory. Now, when you first run Frigate, if you don't create these directories yourself, it will do it for you. If you prefer to create the directories already and have a directory layout set up, you can do that super simply by basically just copying this right here and pasting it in. Now, you got to make sure you're in the right directory. So I'm in the home Frigate directory now, which is where I want it to be. And I will paste this in here, this command, execute it. Now, if you look, we have a config and a storage directory under my main Frigate directory. So next, what we will do is we will actually create some information in the Docker Compose file. So if you look at the Docker Compose file right now, using nano, it's basically empty. There's nothing in here. We need Docker Compose to have at least a very basic minimum set of stuff in there. So it will pull the container down and actually build out the container and make things run. So let me get that off my website over here and I'll just paste it in. It's very simple setup and I'll show you what the pieces of it are. So we're just going to paste it in here. You know, it's kind of hard to see and I don't think I can blow it up. Oh, look at that, I can. Makes that all funny. Version 3.9, apparently that's deprecated, whatever. I'm going to leave it there because that's in the documentation for Frigate. You're going to start a container name called Frigate. Let me make the, that's fine, we'll leave it at Frigate. It'll restart unless it stops. So if you don't stop the container and the system reboots, it will automatically restart it. The stop grace period is 30 seconds. It gives it 30 seconds to shut down before it completely turns off. So it gives time for the databases and everything to get all cleaned up, turned off, etc. We're pulling down the latest stable version of Frigate. You can specify a version number in here. For example, I'm running 0.16 beta something on my production. I would change that here to run the beta if I wanted to. And then these volumes, since we're going to start in the same directory, it references as a /. So /config is the config directory and /storage is a storage directory. And then it adds an optional 1 gig of memory to reduce some SSD card wear. By doing writing, it does some stuff to cache instead of writing it. And then we have our two ports, 8971 and 8554. And then I'm going to write this Docker Compose file. And now just make sure there's some stuff in it here. Now I have that in here as well. And so now our Docker Compose is ready. There's two ways to run this. You can run this with the -d flag that kind of puts it in the background or daemonizes it, however you want to say it. The other option is to run it without the / or -d flag that lets it run in the front. You're going to need to get a password that comes from the log files when it first starts up. And let's go ahead and run it. I'm going to run it without the -d. to show you what it does. If you do want to run it with a daemonize or demonize, you can always type the command docker logs frigate. And if you want to follow it like you do a tail, it would be like that. But we're going to run it with Docker and make sure you're in the directory where the Docker compose file is, or it's not going to work right. Docker compose, or oops. Yeah, Docker compose up and just let it run. And it's going to pull down the latest version that we specified. If it doesn't already exist on your device here, it will go get the latest updated version, the stable version, download it, extract it, and then it will run it. So it'll take a minute for this to happen. And when that's complete, then it should be up and running. You'll see the logs start to go flying by, and you'll be able to see the password that's in that log file. All right, it's starting to start up here, and over here is the password. I'm going to copy this before it goes away, because this is the password you're going to need to get into Frigate. So let's go over to Frigate, and let's actually load up that IP address that I just stuck in here in that container. And it's 80, I always get this wrong, 8971 maybe? Yep. Now remember, it's trying to put it on an HTTPS port. This isn't actually on that, it's on HTTP. Actually, you're wrong, it is HTTPS. You're gonna get a certificate warning, that's fine, because you're using an IP address, not a domain. And you're going to put in admin for the user and that password that you just just copied. Normally what I've had an issue with is I never got anything on the screen. Let's see if the settings screen works. That would be very interesting. No. So I don't typically get anything on the screen. According to the Frigate documentation, everything you do now should be able to be done through the UI. That has not been successful in the 4 times I've tried doing this while doing research for the video. So and I lied. I guess I never waited long enough. If you look at the Docker container logs, you can see that you're getting these errors, and it's cycling through these errors. And I think while it's doing the errors, it's not actually rendering anything in the UI. But this time it seems to be working. So maybe we're going to be okay. This is the first time I've seen this do this, but maybe I wasn't patient enough before. Now, in order to make this work properly, you need to specify a camera in here. I'm going to call this front porch. That's going to be a front porch camera. It's enabled. And then I need a stream, an RTSP stream. Remember, Frigate works in the RTSP world. If you buy a camera off the shelf that's one of those proprietary cameras that doesn't have an RTSP output or something that Frigate can get to, it's not going to work. Do your research on the cameras before you buy cameras and try to run them with Frigate. I'm using Amcrest turret cameras. I've got 4 of those, I think, plus a couple others, and they work very well. So do your research. Don't buy cameras that don't have an RTSP stream. All right. I'm going to actually paste in one of my camera paths here. And for those of you that are worried, don't worry about the username and password that has been changed for the video. So if you're worried about that, thank you. But for the sake of the video, I changed it so that I could do this without having to blur everything out. So let me paste this in here. And I want to allow the clipboard. So yep. And that did not work at all. So let's do this again and paste it just using the keyboard. And get rid of the duplicate here. And this duplicate here. So all we're trying to do right now is get a camera to show up on our screen. All right, so I've got the FMMPEG. The inputs are RTSP with this. Let's use the test username and password that I created for this. All right, and then the role is going to be detect. This camera role is going to be the detect role, and it's subtype 1 from the camera. So that's the less quality feed that comes from the camera. Subtype 0 on this camera is the higher quality. That's the one I want to make recordings from when it gets to that point. Now you can also set the width and the height of the detect. My cameras are all set to, or at least the Amcrest are all set to 640 by 480. So I'll go ahead and change that here. Also, detect is false. It says to disable that until you have a working camera feed. So now if I want to click on save only up here, it will validate this configuration and tell me if there are any errors. If it's green, you're good. If it's red, you've got an error, and it'll typically at the top, let's just make an error. I'll show you what happens. So now I have a problem here. So if I save it, it's going to go red. And if you can decipher all this nonsense, basically what you're looking for is whatever line the actual error is in and what the error is. And sometimes it's very hard to figure it out. You just kind of have to read through this. It can't validate the config line. Yeah. So you can see key error inputs. I mean, if you could get that, some of this is got some code in it or some forget what it is. Anyway, you can't, these dollar or these pound 39s are actually characters, and it just messes it up. It makes it hard to read, but we know the problem here. We'll fix it. Then we'll save it again. It'll go green and we're good to go. Now, when you make a change here in this config file, you have to save and restart. It confirms it for you. And then there you go. You're restarting that. And it waits about a minute before it does a restart. Sometimes you can force a reload before then just to get ahead of it. The more cameras you have, the longer it takes to reload. But with one, let's just go ahead and force reload it now and see if it works. And I may be a little too hasty. You can also go back over here to this if you still have it open and see that it's running. Until this is all completed, it's not going to show anything on the screen. But once it does, it should start to show you the cameras on the screen, or the camera, once it's up there. So let's give it another second or two and see if it shows up. And I'll also do another refresh here. There it is. All right, so there's the camera. It is now streaming. You can click on it and you can view this is the substream 1 or 0 or whatever it is. This is the low quality stream. So you have a working camera stream now, but you can't really, all you can do is view it. There's nothing else going on here. Now we want to talk about hardware acceleration. You can come over here to this $, or this gear, and you can click on system metrics and get a good idea of how long it's taking to do stuff. Now, 10 milliseconds for a detector inference speed is the default when it doesn't have one. So it's not doing any detection right now. So you're not going to see any values here. The lower this number, the better. 10 is, again, it's default with nothing there. So typically it's going to be a little bit higher. Detector CPU usage and memory, none of that's doing anything right now. And then our CPU usage is pretty nil. But what we want to do now is we want to go in here and we're going to go ahead and add the hardware acceleration piece in the file, the Docker Compose file. Now you can see here that it's trying to stop this. It's waiting that 30 seconds. Me being impatient on the video, I'll stop it with a second, Control-C. I'm going to edit this file here. And in order to take that thing that I showed you earlier, the dev DRI render, it's been mapped over to this server. In fact, let's just double check that it's over here. So if we do an ls-al/dev-dri, we do see this render D128. If this is here, then you're going to be able to map it as a device in Frigate, and Frigate can start using that as a hardware acceleration device. So I'm going to go back into the Docker Compose file and actually put it in here, and I'll put it right here under devices. And it will be /dev/DRI/render D128. And that's going to map to the internal container dev DRI render. Same thing, render D128. And that's all you have to do to get that to go through. Now we're going to start it back up with Nano Docker Compose up, or Docker Compose up, not Nano, and give it a second. Make sure there aren't any errors in here. And then we'll be able to utilize that. And to utilize that, we're going to actually add another line in our configuration. Now, you might be thinking this is all hard and crazy, but it's not. Just follow the steps. There are different hardware acceleration options here, and this is where it gets a little tricky. If you look at the hardware acceleration page, there's officially supported devices. You got the Raspberry Pis, you've got Intel-based CPUs, and I think I'm on a Gen 6. I'm going to use this preset VAAPI preset in a minute. I'll show you where. And this is basically what you're doing. You're putting this in the config file. You can do quick sync, H265, and then there's some other stuff related to some of the GPU stats in Docker. This isn't working for me, but that's something that I can play around with later if I want to get GPU stats. There's NVIDIA GPUs. There's all kinds of things in here as far as hardware acceleration. This is where it can get really complicated if you have a strange device or something. Typically, if you're messing with stuff in your home lab and you're playing with Frigate, you probably understand some of this. If you don't want to mess around with it, you want to do a quick one like I've got here, do what I'm doing. Get yourself a device like the Beelink and just set it up and let it run. So there you go. That's my 2 cents worth. Let me go over here. Yeah, see, it says unable to pull GPU. Oh, let me show you. Unable to pull Intel GPU stats, failed to initialize operation not permitted. That's something I can address later. All that means is it's not going to show me my GPU stats. That's something I would like to know to see how well this particular model runs versus using something like a Coral TPU or something for detection. All right, let's go back over to the config file in our Frigate page. If I can find out where it was, which one of these things was it? This? Yeah. And I restarted, so I may have to log back in. Let's check. Oh, one thing to do right away, something I forgot, is go into settings, go into users up top here and add a new user because you're not going to go remember that password you got from the log file. So I'm going to create a new user called Frigate and I'm going to give it a password. And now I have a new user just in case I can't get back in. In version 0.15, they're all admin users. In 0.16, you can actually set a role to restrict what they have access to. But for now, I just created another admin user, and that's as simple as that is. All right, we're going to go into the config. We're going to add some hardware acceleration into this. So configuration editor. And we are going to go to, we can do this per camera or we can do it globally. I'm going to do it globally. So if I add a couple more cameras, I don't have to do this for every camera block. So FFmpeg. And then I'm going to type in HWACCEL args. And it's going to be preset BAAPI. So that's the hardware acceleration that this Frigate instance is going to use based on my hardware and that device pass-through that I use. And you, again, you see it over here up on the very top of this page. Intel Gen 1 through 7 uses this preset VAPI. If you're using an Intel Arc or something else, you use that preset Intel QSV, and then I think you have to set whether it's H264 or H265. So I've got that set now. Let me go ahead and check it and make sure it's okay. It says it's okay. And I'm going to save and restart again. And while it's doing that, let's see what's next. Once you do this, you'll have a working camera, you'll have working hardware acceleration, but you're still not detecting anything. So for that, we're going to add a detector. And for this particular model of device, the Beelink, I'm going to use what's called the OpenVINO model. And let's see if I can find where it talks about detectors. So I'm using an Intel device. Oops, let me show you. So it's going to use OpenVINO. It can run on Intel Arc GPUs, integrated GPUs, which is what we have, the iGPU, and an Intel CPU to provide efficient object detection. If you want to use Onyx, it will automatically be detected and uses the detector in default Frigate image when supported Onyx model is configured. So you have two pieces of this. You have choosing the detector, OpenVINO, and then you have the model that you're going to use with it. So we come down here to the detector. You can either, whoopsie, thank you. You can either choose one or more of the detectors. It says basically if you're using mini cameras, you may have to use more than one detector. Multiple detectors can be defined, assuming you have the resources in your GPU. So I'm going to do just one detector, and then you have a couple of different models. An OpenVINO model is provided in the container when you install it. That's the one I'm going to use. That's the one that's by default. It comes from Intel's Open Model Zoo, and it's converted to an FP16 Precision IR model. If we're staying at the basic level of installing Frigate, then you don't need to worry about that. This is what you want to have, all of this information right here. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go back into my configuration, Frigate. I'm just going to throw it up here at the top just to make it easy to find later. Just paste that in here. So now we'll use an OpenVINO detector with a GPU for my device. And this is the model it's going to use. This path is in the container already. It should be able to use that. So let's check the configuration. That's good. We're going to restart it one more time. You can add all these things in at once. You don't have to wait and restart, wait and restart. You can build your whole config file and then check it and then restart it. I'm just showing you this for the sake of the video and to demonstrate all the different steps one at a time. All right, so we're going to check that in a second. That means we have a detector, we have hardware acceleration, we have a working camera. Now we need to do something with it, and that's where we're going to start adding detection, which I'll show you here in just a second. Let me go ahead and force a reload. It should be up and running already. No errors that I can see so far. And there's always logs. You can always check the system logs here to see what's going on. Again, this stats thing, we'll ignore that. We don't care about that right now. But if you go into this page, now you can see the hardware info button. And you'll see whether it's got what it needs. So this is a VA API version. It's got an Intel IH driver for Gen graphics card, so the GPU. So it has information about the model and the detector that you have set up in here. So it looks like that's all good. So now we're going to do is go back into the configuration file. We're going to add a few more things. Because right now you have the detector, you have the model, you have the hardware acceleration, you have a camera that is able to stream and nothing else. I'm actually going to add a second input here, just while we're at it. And I'm going to make the other one the actual recording one. So I'm going to change the subtype to 0. And there is a way to figure out what your, let me get that for you, what your type of camera FT, that's not the right link. You can't see what I'm doing, so just hold on a second. There's a page that talks about all of the different, I thought I had it in my blog. There we go. Let me find this for you. All right, bear with me. All right, on this page here, you can find RTSP URLs for all these different URLs. So if I look at, I think the one I have now is actually Dahua. Now it got bought out. Amcrest. I don't see an Amcrest on here, so let's just see what Dahua looks like. This is similar to what I have, right? So Dahua. So you have your username, password, IP, port, and then all of the rest of this stuff. And that pretty much looks like username, password, IP, port, and the rest. So this is basically the Dahua. But you can go in here and you can find a camera model that has RTSP on it. And then you can figure out what the typical RTSP stream is for that. And that's where you find all that information. So anyway, you'll want to do that if you don't have a camera like I have. I want to change this role to record because this is the stream that we record from. It'll detect here, which is a substream, and it will record on this right here. Everything else will remain the same. Let me go ahead and throw in a few things here that will help it do recording. I'll explain what it is when I get back down to it. All right, here we go. Let me copy this and we'll put it over here. So detect enabled, and then we'll go down here. All right, so let me make sure that that is in the proper place. Detect record. All right, so as long as the right level for the YAML to be working. So first of all, recording is enabled, so that's a true. I'm going to keep 0 days. Now in Frigate, if you set that to 0, it won't continuously record. If you want to continuously record that camera, you have to set this to something that's greater than 0. So let's say I want to keep 2 days of continuous 24/7 recording or 24-hour recordings, then you would set that to 2 and it would continuously record. If you set to 0, it's only going to record events that are triggered by the detector and your criteria. Alerts will also go on your screen. Those are actually, I'll show you that in a minute. Those are there for 3 days in this configuration. Detections, I retain those for 1 day. Detections and alerts are 2 different areas that you can set. Those are based on zones. So you can set some objects like person, car in one zone, And then you can have some other stuff in a different zone, or you can have, let's say you have person and car in zone A, and then you have dog and cat in zone A. You can set that to only show detections of dogs and cats and not an alert, but only alert on person and car. So there's a way to set that up. A little more advanced, but I've got it set up in here for that purpose. And then if I want to have snapshots enabled, I can make that true and set that default of 30 days to keep those snapshots. So let me check and see. Are we good? Yep, we're good. I'm going to restart it, and then I will show you some of that stuff that I'm talking about. There are definitely a lot more settings you can do. You can tweak this to whatever you want it to be. You just need to get it up and running first to make sure everything is good, and then go back and play around with it one piece at a time. Because if it breaks while you're doing something, you know exactly what you broke and you can undo it. So make sure that you are changing little bits at a time. And now you can see we're back up again. Now under the review page, you'll see any alerts or any detections. And right now I don't have any to show you. I can show you on my production, I think, what that looks like. Give me just a moment to see what is going to show up on there when I pull this up. All right, let's check the window cleaners today. So if we look at this, you'll see I have 91 alerts and 72 detections. And these are all alerts that have happened. If we look at detections, now I see that things that are not, I don't want to generate an alert, like there's a person in the street. I don't care about them in the street. I want to be alerted when they're in the driveway, but not in the street. But I want to get a detection when someone's in the street, just in case I need that for something else. So it detects a person in the street zone, and it alerts when a person is in the driveway zone. Anyway, that's the difference between alerts and detections that are in this interface right here. So now we have a camera, one camera. We have it using hardware acceleration. We have the camera set up for detections, and we have it set to record a higher quality stream. Those are all the settings that make this work. If you look at the settings, let me show you that piece here. If we look at the camera settings, this is what I'm talking about. Right now I have no zone set up. If I did, I would be able to choose the difference, and I can also show you that on my other production one. If I go to camera settings now, under the review classification, Frigate categorizes review items as alert and detections. By default, all person and car objects are considered alerts because most people are interested in that. You can refine the categorization of your review items by configuring required zones. So I have two zones set up on the camera. I have a driveway right side and a front street. Right now, if you check these boxes, this description down here will change based on what you're saying. Right now, all persons, car objects detected in the driveway right side will be shown as alert. So car and person will alert me through the alert tab, and it will also generate an alert through my notifications through Home Assistant, by the way. The detections are everything else. So all person, face, license plate, Amazon, FedEx, all these objects not categorized in the driveway will be shown as detections regardless of which zone they are in. Now I could limit that to specific zones. Let's say I only wanted detections on the front street. It would change that and say all those objects detected on front street on the driveway camera, not categorized as alerts, will be shown. So if they're not an alert over here, they're going to be shown as a detection. So that's the difference between those two things. And you can get really complex about how you set things up. In this case, I don't have any zones set up. So every car and person object on the front porch camera will be shown as an alert. Any other objects not classified as a person or a car will be detection. So if a dog or cat or bicycle or whatever shows up on the front porch, it'll show as a detection rather than an alert. So you'll see those in these two different categories. I just don't have any of those right now because I just fired this container up and no one's walked around. All right, what else do we have here? Let me just make sure I covered it all. I do have a complete full GitHub or a complete full configuration page based on 0.16 on my GitHub page. I also have a 0.15, which is what we're looking at right here because 0.16 is still in beta. I have the complete single camera configuration on the page on the blog, which I can just show you here. Instead of talking about it, let me just show you. On this page here, this is a very basic camera setup with the things that I talked about. Everything is in here. The only other thing I didn't talk about was this output arguments. This is an audio output argument that allows you to hear audio from cameras that have audio. All right, this is, where are we at on time here? We are on, wow, a pretty long video this time, but I wanted to cover all of the stuff that's related to Frigate and show you how to set it up. It doesn't take as long as this video shows. Obviously, I'm doing a lot of talking and bouncing back and forth between different things to show you. You can fill out that entire config file after you build your container and have it up and running in probably 10 minutes or less. Don't be intimidated by this. There is finally a full configuration document here that goes through all of the configuration settings. Don't copy the full configuration file. Just take values you need. For example, I use MQTT to send alerts to Home Assistant. We've talked about detectors. You can do TLS for port 8971 to give you some security. Proxies, there's authentication section stuff. Models, we talked about. Audio, you can do audio detection. So that's a section on audio detection from your cameras. Bird's eye is a thing that allows the camera images to show up only when there's activity. You can set that up here. And a whole bunch of other things that are in here. Lots of adjustments. This is what makes it where it's more complicated or feels like it's more complicated. But as you've seen, all of that isn't necessary to get a working Frigate instance up and running. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. Don't be intimidated. Get it up and running. Once you've got it tuned and running the way you want it, aside from a tweak here and there, you're good to go. It's robust. I've been using it for 4 or 5 years now. I got rid of Blue Iris for this. No problems with it. I've upgraded multiple times. Version 0.16 has face and LPR recognition now. So once you get to that point, you can start running 0.16 and get some face recognition. That uses a few more resources on your hardware, so you got to be careful there. But not to keep harping on it, this is not that hard, and you should be able to go in there and set this up quickly for a basic setup. All right, that's it. I'm done talking. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for supporting me throughout the years for those that have done that and watching my content and just help keep me going here. With that, we will see you on the next video, and be safe out there.